again, because doping is an area I'm personally very interested in, even though I don't take drugs for the record. This question is directed to my good friend Brian. You know, Brian, when we Malaysians, I mean, personally for me, when I saw the news that Chong Wei was positive, I thought that's the end of our badminton life, because he's the only guy who can hit the shuttlecock in our country. And you know, to credit given to the chap, right? He just won again, isn't it? He thrashed Lindan. Finally, you know, he thrashed Lindan. But can you share with us perhaps your experience? I know, subject to client's or this privilege, you can't disclose, and I do intend to ask you that. But can you share with us what happened to Chong Wei? You know, you'd be interested. I think parties will want to hear what happened to him, how he coped with it. Did he have to sell his Lamborghini, for example? But you know, he looks. When I met him after the event, I saw him once. He was really stressed. He really looked very, very down. I had the opportunity to bump into him. Would you mind sharing with us? Are you okay with that? Tell us what happened.
Okay, there are certain things that I am not able to disclose. Okay, I think Richard knows that very well. That includes as to what car he drives and all that. Okay, I mean, in my experience as his personal lawyer in dealing with his contracts and leading up to the solving or helping to solve the doping issues, what happens between the time where he was tested positive and being notified that sample A is tested positive, and thereafter going for sample B as well, the first thing that we did was to run through all the contracts, because these contracts have legal implications. That would include monetary compensation and all that, so we have to deal with the sponsors. And because he has been supporting these sponsors from the day he started badminton, none of the sponsors have actually terminated any of these contracts. So we ride through that part safely. And when it comes to dealing with the doping issues, of course, there's a great amount of stress. This is where you have to keep asking the athletes like a criminal. Where were you on certain days? What did you do on certain days? What did you eat? How much did you eat? Where did you go? Who were you with? All sort of personal questions. And that stressed them out. And then, of course, then we have to go to dealing with the preparations of defense and all that. Again and again, we'll be asking the same questions, asking them whether it's correct. Do you remember it correctly? Is this the truth and all that? Okay, and so this whole process definitely stressed out the players. Of course, during this period, they are not allowed to train. They are not allowed to play. So that also stressed them out, because they were worried that physically they'll be affected and all that. So they have to do all these trainings privately and not to use BAM facilities or any of BAM facilities at all, unless and until you get approval from BWF or WADA itself. So Richard is right, he looks stressed, and there was some amount of stress. That stress also affected me. Right? And of course, luckily, I mean, with the presentation of the case and with the help of everyone around, the doctors, the nutritionists, the lawyers, physicians, the coaches and all that, we managed to just get an 8-month ban, which is backdated to the sample collection date.
Thank you.
Okay, we originally had 3 questions left. Richard took 2 of them, 1 left, 1 final question. I see the gentleman who's standing there.
Excuse me, my name is Zahan Mohammed from RWY. Formerly RWY.
That's why you look familiar, huh?
I was handling the case in Singapore last time. Okay, this is again, I just want to ask a question to Michael. Regarding the head of ADAMAS, the law provided by WADA stated that it's not only that doping, if the athletes found out fine with the prohibition. Rule 22 said that if the athlete found with a prohibited substance is subject for the anti-doping, subject for penalized for anti-doping organization. So my question is that, what does the athlete actually deserve an immunity from the local jurisdictions? I mean, to have a prohibited substance in your body while you competing, yes, I got it, it's at the sports. But outside competitions, having a prohibited substance which is maybe subject to local jurisdictions such as Malaysia and dangerous drug acts, example like that, which is giving a criminal penalized to that. So is there some sort of actually immunity to the athletes who actually resisted? Sorry, I just repeat my questions. Okay, under WADA there's two part. One is if you are caught in anti-doping. Another one is actually if you have a prohibited substance. Okay, now the question is about you actually in the holding of prohibited substance. So I'm not saying that actually you are caught in the competition or something like that, but if you're caught while having a prohibited substance, there is a local jurisdictions towards it, such as anti-drug acts and everything and so on. So does that create an immunity to the athletes now to just submit with anti-doping agency and get 2 to 4 years of suspend rather than actually under Dangerous Drug Act you are penalized subject to about 7 years in jail? That is my question. Does that create sort of a immunity to the athletes?
Okay, to answer your questions, when we talk about substances, they are not necessarily drugs falling under the purview of the Dangerous Drugs Act itself. There's a whole list of prohibited substances that WADA revises every year. And when we looked at drug tests, there are in-competition tests and out-of-competition tests. And when you look at these substances, there are two broad categories of substances. One is substances that are prohibited at all times. These are namely anabolic agents and all that. And those substances, they are only prohibited in competition, which means that you can use it out of competition. But when you use these out of competition substances, it may stay a little bit longer than necessary. Sometimes your body does not burn it, your fat store it, and it can turn into metabolites and all that. So going into competition with these substances used out of competition, and you are getting a positive test results from that, you are violating the anti-doping code.
Does that answer your question? Not really?